She is an inspirational person. She is like a shimmering, glittering jewel in the crown of humanity.
Today, thousands of Jewish people owe their lives to Irena Sendler.
I think she is a very, very special person that deserves to be remembered.
During the Second World War, Irena Sendler risked her own life to help save 2,500 Jewish children from Nazi-occupied Warsaw to safety. Despite saving so many lives, her story isn't widely known. But that could be about to change, because in a few days' time, Irena is being honoured with a statue.
When war broke out, Irena, a Catholic, was a social worker in her native Warsaw, where the Nazis had segregated the Jewish community into a notorious walled ghetto. Meanwhile, 250 miles across Poland in Lvov, Lily Pullman, who in later life became Irena's best friend, was living in a similar ghetto where conditions were equally harsh.
We were worse than animals in the ghetto. Lying in the street, dead bodies. Ghetto was hell on earth. She was thinking, I need to help the people in the ghetto. She could enter as a Christian, and she could bring medication, she could bring some food. But the moment she was in the ghetto, walking, she put on the armband with the Star of David. She wanted to be in solidarity with the people.
With conditions deteriorating and incidents of Nazi cruelty on the rise, Irena knew that taking aid into the ghetto wasn't enough. She needed to get the children out.
She had to bring together a network of 10 ladies and 2 or 3 men, a lorry driver, an ambulance driver, a tram driver, to help. Some were babies, little babies. She put into boxes. They were sedated and in boxes, taken under the lorry, under coal, under thing, in coffins. But when she had a child who was 4 or 5 years old, she had to hold the child by the hand, and she walked out.
To do that, Lily, to take the risks that Irena would have taken, and also
constantly. She was her life and her mother's life, and those around her, on the spot, they would have been shot.
Despite the risks, Irena and her network are thought to have smuggled over 2,000 Jewish children out of the ghetto.
When the war is over, she was hoping that maybe some family will survive. Every single time she took a child out, when she came home, on a piece of tissue, she would write his Christian name now, and alongside the original name.
The names were kept in a jar and buried for safekeeping. For 4 years, Irena avoided the authorities, but following a Gestapo raid on her house, she was arrested, tortured, and sentenced to death. But on the day of her execution, there was a dramatic twist.
They were taking her in a lorry with others, and when they arrived on the spot, everybody out like the Germans, raus, raus. The guardsman, who was, raus, raus, then not you, everybody else. And she was the one he kept and said, and now run.
Irena's underground associates had bribed the German guards to let her escape. She spent the rest of the war in hiding, working as a nurse under an assumed name. Years later, thanks to the records Irena had kept, attempts were made to reunite the children with their families, but many of their parents had perished in the Treblinka extermination camp, a fate the children would have surely met had they not been saved by Irena.
Irena wasn't Jewish. Do you think her story, in many ways, is also about that compassion to be shown to all faiths, to all people? Faiths.
I sprawa była dla mnie prosta. Wspominałam wtedy przykazania mego taty, który mnie uczył, że jak ktoś tonie, to mu trzeba podać rękę. I po prostu tę rękę starałam się podać narodowi żydowskiemu.
Irena died aged 98 in 2008, Now, finally, her achievements are being honoured with a statue which will stand in Newark, Nottinghamshire. The town's ties with Poland go back to the Second World War, when Polish airmen were stationed here and where many were also interred. Marta Dzeniga from the Polish Cultural Institute is just one of the people determined to preserve Irena's legacy.
I'm really hoping that the news about Irena will get out there and that there will be more ways in which we will be able to remember about her and teach the younger generations about what she did. Because I think it really is so important today to see that we as human beings are able to do good in a situation of such evil.
That's a message that comes across very powerfully in the statue itself. Creating it has been a 3-year partnership between the Polish Cultural Institute and sculptor Andrew Lilly.
What I wanted to depict was the stress of the entire situation, the threat of war, the constant danger. I wanted to have Irena walking through the streets of Warsaw with these children, evading capture.
How do you feel now that the statue is complete and anyone could walk by and learn about Irena's story?
Right from the start, I designed it specifically with children in mind, and it's being placed between 2 major schools, and I think that's just the perfect placement for it. I want children to ask, who was this lady? What are these children doing here? And that way they can have an access to this phenomenal story.
She was an angel to these people, to these children whom she saved. So special. I just loved her. I always will.
And yesterday, the statue of Irena was unveiled in Fountain Gardens in Newark.